Joseph Jenkins Roberts, March 15th, 1809 to February 24th, 1876, was the first and seventh President of Liberia. Born free in Norfolk, Virginia, U.S., Roberts immigrated to Liberia in 1829 as a young man. He opened a trading store in Monrovia and later engaged in politics. When Liberia became independent on July 26th of 1847, Roberts was elected the first Black American president for the Republic of Liberia, serving until 1856. In 1872, he was elected again to serve as Liberia's seventh president. Joseph Jenkins Roberts, first president of Liberia, American-born. Stephen Allen Benson, or Stephen Allen Benson. May 21st, 1816 to January 24th, 1865, served as the second president of Liberia from 1856 to 1864. Prior to that, he served as the third vice president of Liberia from 1854 to 1856 under President Joseph Jenkins Roberts. Benson was the first president to have lived in Liberia since childhood. He and his family were among the earliest American immigrants arriving in 1822. For you that don't know, Liberia was established as a colony for American freed so-called blacks or so-called African Americans, and was established as a colony for them. The colony of Liberia was established by the American Colonization Society, and this man, John Hanson, was an African American associated with the American Colonization Society, which sought to relocate freeborn and emancipated Black Americans, so-called, to Liberia. Now, in Liberia, he served as a senator from Grand Bassa County. He was born into slavery, but he purchased his freedom and immigrated from Baltimore to Liberia at age 36. In Liberia, he joined the growing mercantile class. He was elected to the Colonial Council in December of 1840 and was elected as one of the two senators from Grand Bassa County in the first elections after the country's independence. He also served as commissary in the same county for several years, furnishing a house for the storage of arms and ammunition. Hanson died in 1860 and was mourned as a faithful and patriotic servant by Liberian President Stephen Allen Benson. Senator Hanson has sometimes been misidentified as being John Hanson of Maryland, a white in status politician who served as a president of the Continental Congress during the American Revolution. This man you see, his name is Robert Finley. The Society for the Colonization of Free People of Color of America, commonly known as the American Colonization Society, or ACS, was a group established in 1816 by a Robert Finley of New Jersey, which supported the migration of free African Americans to the continent of Africa. The society in 1821 through 1822 helped to found a colony on the Pepper Coast of West Africa as a place for freeborn or manumitted American blacks. The ACS met with immediate and continuing objections from such African Americans as James Forten and David Walker, who wished to remain in the land of their birth, saw in colonization as a racist strategy for protecting slavery and purging the U.S. of its black citizens, and preferred to fight for equal rights at home. Colonizers were also met with resistance and attacks from those already living in and around the areas being colonized. There was some religious support, and missionary efforts were part of the colonization. Disease was a major problem, with Liberian immigrants suffering the highest mortality rates in accurately recorded human history, supposedly. Of the 4,571 immigrants who arrived in Liberia between 1820 to 1843, only 1,819 were alive by 1843. The ACS was founded by groups otherwise opposed to each other on the issue of slavery, being a coalition made up mostly of evangelicals and Quakers who supported abolition of slavery and believed blacks, so-called, would face better chances for freedom in Africa than in the United States, and some slaveholders in the Maryland branch and elsewhere who saw repatriation as a way to remove free blacks from slave societies and avoid slave rebellions. The two opposed groups found common ground in support of so-called repatriation. Among the society's supporters was Charles Fenton Mercer, Henry Clay, John Randolph, Richard Bland Lee, and Bushrod Washington. The society was especially prominent among slave owners in the Virginia Piedmont region in the 1820s and 1830s. American presidents Thomas Jefferson, James Monroe, and James Madison were among its supporters. James Madison served as the society's president in the early 1830s. From 1821, thousands of freed blacks who faced legislated restrictions in much of the U.S. moved to Liberia. Over 20 years, the colony continued to grow and establish economic stability. In 1847, the legislature of Liberia declared the nation an independent state. The ACS had closely controlled the development of Liberia until its declaration of independence. By 1867, the ACS had assisted in the immigration of more than 13,000 Americans to Liberia. From 1825 to 1919, it published the African Repository and Colonial Journal. After 1919, the society essentially ended, but it did not formally dissolve until 1964, when it transferred its papers to the Library of Congress. The Library of Congress, or LOC, is the research library that officially serves the United States Congress and is the de facto National Library of the United States. It is the oldest federal cultural institution in the United States. The library is housed in 3 buildings on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. It also maintains the National Audiovisual Conservation Center in Culpeper, Virginia. The library's functions are overseen by the Librarian of Congress, and its buildings are maintained by the architect of the Capitol. The Library of Congress claims to be the largest library in the world. Its collections are universal, not limited by subject, format, or national boundary, and include research materials from all parts of the world and in more than 450 languages.